Good afternoon. So, as you probably already have gathered about coaching, even if you've gathered this informally or formally within a workplace, within readings, etc., coaching is a new discipline and coaching is a magpie discipline. And what we mean by it being a magpie discipline is it grabs ideas from other more established disciplines such as psychology, sociology, and philosophy. Well, my own background into coaching is really as a learning theorist, as someone who's interested in how people learn things and why they learn things. And that comes from a background in schools, a background in universities, a background as a teacher, a background as a lecturer. And learning theories inform coaching, because one way to understand coaching in its most simple form is it is a conversational process where the people engaged in the conversation learn or develop in some ways. So if we're going to approach coaching from that perspective, an understanding of how we learn socially and psychologically is really important and can inform our understanding of coaching as a discipline specifically. So how do we learn? Well, the best way to start, and really the starting point in learning theories, is with a man called Lev Vygotsky, who was a writer in the 1930s, who was then writing the USSR, who is really the kind of the father figure, the seminal figure in what we could call social constructivist learning. And what Lev Vygotsky said, Lev Vygotsky actually focused his studies on children, but his studies are still relevant for adults, even though as we go through these lectures, go through the course, we'll challenge why they might not work entirely for adults, why we need alternative and supporting theories as well. But what Lev Vygotsky said, in a nutshell, is there is a zone of learning. It's the point at which you know enough to improve, but you don't know enough to be perfect, to put it really simply. So an example of where you're outside that zone is driving. Most of us are no longer improving as drivers in any sense. Even if we do 100 hours more driving, we don't get better as a driver, unless we're a beginner driver. We've mastered it to the extent that we want to master it and we're no longer progressing. On the other side is anyone in this room, because we've got no Vietnamese students here, I'm going to guess is learning Vietnamese. If I say go away and practice Vietnamese, you don't have the nuts and bolts position from which to develop further. So the zone where learning happens is where you know enough, but you don't know so much that you have reached mastery for you. That is the zone where the coaching conversation happens. Because Vygotsky also says that learning is a social process that's enabled through conversation. And the learning that occurs is beyond the expertise of both people in the conversation. The learning that occurs is where the knowledge exists rather than residing in a single individual. Now that's quite a complex concept, but once we've mastered that, we'll have something significant to ground our understanding of learning theories on.